Have you ever noticed how people rush to label a woman who's single? They'll whisper, she's too picky, or maybe she's hard to deal with. But here's the truth. They rarely see the strength, the standards, and the story behind that choice. Being single for a long time isn't a weakness. It's not a failure. It's a decision, it's a journey, and sometimes it's the strongest thing a woman can do. So let's talk about why a woman stays single and why it might actually be the smartest move she's ever made. Let's be honest for a second. People love to assume a woman is single because she doesn't have options, because no one is interested, or because she can't find someone. But the truth is usually the complete opposite. Most of the time, a woman is single because she knows exactly what she deserves and she refuses to settle for less. That's not weakness. That's not stubbornness. That's strength. That's discipline. And that's self-respect. Because here's what's real: being with the wrong person will cost you so much more than being alone ever will. See, when a woman understands her worth, she's not looking for just anybody to fill the empty seat next to her. She's looking for someone who values her presence, who sees her for who she is, and who can meet her at the level she's worked so hard to reach. And that's not being too picky. That's called having standards. Think about it. Nobody tells a man he's too picky for choosing the car he wants to drive, the house he wants to buy, or the career he wants to pursue. But when a woman chooses carefully who has access to her life, suddenly she's difficult. No, she's wise. Because love is not supposed to be about desperation, it's supposed to be about alignment. A lot of people end up in relationships simply because they were afraid of being alone. And the cost of that decision shows up years later, in resentment, in frustration, in compromise after compromise, until they don't even recognize themselves anymore. A woman who chooses to stay single instead of settling knows she's protecting herself from that cycle. She knows she doesn't need a warm body just to say she has someone. She needs the right soul, the right character, the right energy. And until she finds that, she's fine walking alone. That's not emptiness, that's confidence. Now, the danger in lowering your standards is that it doesn't just affect you in the moment, it ripples into your future. If you accept less than you deserve once, you teach yourself to keep accepting less. And over time, you start believing that's all you're worth. But when a woman stands firm on her standards, when she draws that line and says, I will not settle, she's not just protecting her present, she's shaping her future. She's ensuring that when the right person comes, she'll be ready, not broken, not bitter, not drained, but whole. And let's be clear, standards are not about being perfect or demanding perfection. They're about knowing what kind of love you're willing to give and what kind of love you refuse to live without. They're about clarity. If she knows she needs honesty, consistency, and respect, why would she lower that bar just because someone cute came along and offered attention? Attention is not affection. Consistency is not just communication when it's convenient. And charm without character is a trap. That's why she's single, not because she can't get someone, but because she knows how dangerous it is to keep the wrong one. So when people look at her and say, she's been single for so long, she must be lonely, they're missing the bigger picture. She's not lonely, she's selective. She's not unwanted, she's intentional. And when the right man finally does step into her life, he'll know he wasn't chosen out of fear, or out of pressure, or out of loneliness. He was chosen because he met her standards. And that is a love that actually lasts. Because at the end of the day, being single isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is not losing yourself just to say you have someone. When a woman chooses to stay single for a long time, a lot of people assume she's waiting around, twiddling her thumbs, or just hoping for someone to come along and rescue her. But the truth is, many women in that season aren't waiting. They're working. They're building. They're growing into the kind of person they've always wanted to be. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by intention. See, Love can be a beautiful addition to your life, but it should never be the foundation of your identity. A woman who spends her single years focused on herself understands that. She's not sitting around saying, "I'll be happy when I find him." She's saying, "I'll be happy because I've already built myself into someone I'm proud of." And that's powerful, because when you spend time becoming, you start to discover parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. You uncover talents, you chase goals, you set higher standards for your future. She might be diving into her career, not because she doesn't want love, but because she wants to establish her own independence, her own security, her own sense of self before anyone else enters the picture. She might be working on her education, pursuing her passions, or traveling the world. And here's the thing, it's not selfish. It's necessary, because the stronger she is as an individual, the stronger she'll be in any relationship that comes down the road. So many people get into relationships before they've dealt with themselves. They're carrying insecurities, unhealed wounds, or unresolved baggage, and then they expect another person to fix it. But when a woman chooses to be single and works on herself, she's refusing to hand someone else that responsibility. She's saying, "I owe it to myself to heal, to grow, to learn, and to walk into love whole, not half." That kind of work takes time, and that kind of discipline takes courage, because growth isn't always glamorous. Healing isn't always easy, but it's worth it. Sometimes being single is the only season where you actually get the space to hear yourself, to figure out what you truly want out of life and out of love. A woman who invests in that season isn't falling behind, she's setting herself up ahead. Because when you know yourself, you won't waste time entertaining people who don't align with you. You won't get caught up in relationships that derail your purpose, because you've already defined it for yourself. That's the power of taking time alone. It gives you clarity that desperation never will. And here's what people miss: a woman who has invested in herself doesn't come to the table asking, "What can you give me?" She comes saying, "Here's what I've already built. Here's who I already am. Do you add to this, or do you take away from it?" That's a completely different level of love. That's not dependency, that's partnership. And the only way you get there is by refusing to rush, by taking the time to strengthen who you are before you give yourself to someone else. So when you see a woman who's been single for a long time, don't think of her as incomplete. Think of her as someone who's been sharpening her mind, her spirit, and her future. Because one day, when the right person shows up, he won't be meeting a woman who needs saving. He'll be meeting a woman who's already whole. And that's the kind of woman who can love without losing herself. There's something people rarely talk about when it comes to why a woman chooses to stay single for a long time, and it's this peace. Her peace, her mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Because once you've been through enough, once you've experienced relationships that drained you instead of built you, you begin to see that not every connection is worth the cost. And for many women, staying single is less about not finding love and more about protecting the peace they fought to create in their lives. You have to understand, peace is expensive. It's not just about having quiet moments, it's about freedom from the chaos that comes when you attach yourself to the wrong people. When you've had someone play with your emotions, break your trust, or make you doubt your worth, you start realizing that the wrong love doesn't just waste your time, it steals your peace. And when a woman decides she's not willing to lose that again, she won't just give her energy to anyone who shows up with half-hearted intentions. She knows that her peace is the foundation of everything else in her life. Without it, even the best opportunities feel heavy. With it, even challenges feel lighter. Think about it. A relationship can either add to your peace or destroy it. It can either make you feel secure or keep you constantly guessing. And some women get to a point where they're just done with the guessing, the games, the inconsistencies. They would rather be alone and calm than partnered and constantly anxious. That doesn't make them cold, it makes them wise. It means they've learned the difference between being loved and being controlled, between being cherished and being used, between being chosen and being tolerated. And once you learn that difference, your standards for peace go up. The world might look at her and say, she's guarded, she's too cautious, she has walls up. But what they don't see is that those so-called walls are really just boundaries. Boundaries built from lessons. Boundaries that say, I will not allow you to disrupt the stability I worked so hard to find. And here's the thing about boundaries, they don't keep love out. They keep chaos out. They keep manipulation out. They keep toxicity out. And when you value your peace enough to protect it, it means you're not desperate for attention, you're intentional about connection. Some people think being single is lonely, but for women who value their peace, it's actually freeing. It's being able to wake up without wondering what mood someone else will be in. It's being able to focus on your goals without being distracted by unnecessary drama. It's being able to laugh, breathe, rest, and create without always having to defend your happiness. That's not loneliness, that's clarity. And clarity is priceless. So, when a woman chooses her peace over a relationship, she's not rejecting love. She's rejecting the version of love that comes with confusion, disrespect, or instability. She's making space for the kind of love that doesn't cost her sanity, that doesn't make her question her value, that doesn't pull her backwards. And until that kind of love shows up, she will guard her peace like it's her treasure. Because it is. At the end of the day, peace is not something you compromise on. It's not negotiable. It's the difference between surviving a relationship and thriving in one. One of the biggest reasons a woman stays single for a long time is because she's not willing to play games. She's not interested in the chase, the half-efforts, or the confusion that has somehow become normal in modern dating. And honestly, who can blame her? So much of what we call dating today is built around mixed signals, texting one day and disappearing the next, saying one thing but doing another, breadcrumbing just enough to keep someone interested but never really committing. A woman who chooses to stay single for a while has likely seen through that cycle, and she's decided she wants no part of it. She knows that if someone is serious about her, she won't have to decode their actions or guess their intentions. It will be clear. See, relationships shouldn't feel like a puzzle you have to constantly solve. If she has to keep wondering where she stands, if she has to chase down honesty, if she has to put energy into trying to get consistency, then that's not a relationship, it's a game. And games are exhausting. They drain your confidence, they blur your clarity, and they keep you stuck in this constant loop of what if. But a woman who values her time and her worth understands she doesn't have to waste her heart in that kind of cycle. She knows that love, real love, doesn't need to play hide and seek. It shows up, it stays, it's consistent. And here's the truth, games are usually about control. They're about keeping someone uncertain, keeping them guessing, keeping them holding on to hope while never giving them stability. But she's not going to sign up for that. Not anymore. Maybe she learned it the hard way. Maybe she gave too many chances to someone who promised change but never delivered. Maybe she spent too many nights trying to figure out what went wrong when, in reality, nothing was wrong except that he never intended to give her what she deserved. Either way, once she sees the pattern, she steps out of the game completely. And that's why she might stay single longer. Because she's not going to lower her guard for someone who doesn't know what they want. The beauty in that choice is that it saves her time. Time is something you never get back, and a woman who refuses to play games understands the value of it. She's not waiting around for someone who can't decide if he wants her. She's not holding on to almost relationships that never turn into something real. She's not clinging to excuses dressed up as effort. She'd rather be single than strung along. That doesn't make her bitter, it makes her wise. And what's interesting is, the moment she takes herself out of the game, her perspective shifts. Instead of asking, why doesn't he call? Why doesn't he commit? Why doesn't he show up? She asks a better question: why would I waste myself on someone who doesn't? That's strength. That's growth. And that's what keeps her from settling for confusion when she could wait for clarity. So when people wonder why she's still single, the answer might be simple: because she's waiting for someone who knows how to show up without the games, without the mixed signals, without the drama. Someone who means what they say and proves it with action. Because until then, she's not wasting her time. At the end of the day, love should feel like peace, not a performance. One of the biggest pressures a woman faces when she's been single for a long time is the pressure of time. Society has a way of putting women on this invisible clock. By a certain age, you're supposed to be married. By another age, you're supposed to have children. And if you don't, people start asking questions. They start whispering, assuming, or even judging. And the weight of those expectations can make anyone feel like they're behind, like they're running out of time. But the truth is, love doesn't run on a clock. Real connection, real partnership, it doesn't have a deadline. A woman who understands this is the one who chooses to be patient instead of panicked. It's not that she doesn't want love or doesn't dream of building a family. It's that she knows forcing the wrong relationship just to meet a timeline ends up costing far more than waiting for the right one. Because there are plenty of people who rushed into something because the clock was ticking, only to find themselves years later unhappy, unfulfilled, and wishing they had waited. And that's not the kind of life she wants to live. She would rather take her time, even if that means staying single longer, than gamble her peace and her future just to fit society's idea of on schedule. When you take the clock off of love, everything changes. You stop measuring yourself by what age you hit milestones, and you start measuring by alignment. You stop asking, am I behind? And you start asking, am I ready? That's a powerful shift. Because love is not about getting there fast, it's about getting there right. And women who stay single for longer often carry this wisdom. They've seen too many people rush, too many people compromise, too many people sacrifice joy just to avoid being alone. They've decided that's not going to be their story. There's also a kind of freedom in not racing against time. When she's not panicked about finding love by a certain age, she's able to focus on her own journey. She can build her career, deepen her friendships, travel, grow spiritually, and heal emotionally. She can show up fully present for her own life. And when the right person comes along, she won't be desperate for them to complete her because she's already whole. That kind of love is stronger because it's not born out of fear of running out of time. It's born out of choice. Now, this doesn't mean the pressure isn't real. The questions from family, the comparisons to friends, the endless reminders of where she should be. It's exhausting, but every time she chooses to wait, every time she chooses patience over panic, she's taking her power back. She's rewriting the story that says a woman's value is tied to her timeline. And she's proving that her worth is not measured by when she finds love, but by who she becomes while she waits for it. So yes, maybe she's single longer than people expect. Maybe she's not following the same path as everyone else, but she knows something they don't. Rushing love only creates regret, but waiting for alignment creates peace. And that's why she can hold her head high, even when people question her timing. Because in the end, love isn't late. It shows up exactly when it's meant to. At the core of it all, a woman who chooses to stay single for a long time is usually doing so because she understands the difference between having just any relationship and building the right partnership. And that difference matters more than most people realize. Anybody can find someone to text back and forth with, someone to pass the time, someone to ease the silence. But that doesn't mean it's love. That doesn't mean it's purpose. That doesn't mean it's right. A woman who has been single longer than people expect has likely learned that being with the wrong person feels lonelier than being alone, and she refuses to put herself through that. She's not looking for a placeholder. She's not looking for someone to validate her worth or fill a temporary void. She's looking for alignment. She's looking for a partner who matches her values, respects her boundaries, and shares her vision for the future. And until that person comes along, she'd rather walk her path alone than carry the weight of someone who doesn't belong. That's not stubbornness, that's wisdom. Because when you settle for just any relationship, you don't just risk your heart, you risk your peace, your growth, and sometimes even your purpose. The right partnership isn't just about attraction or chemistry. Those things fade, and she knows that. The right partnership is about being able to build together, about having someone who challenges you to grow while still loving you as you are. It's about support that doesn't waver when life gets hard, and commitment that doesn't collapse when things aren't easy. And here's the truth. Finding that kind of connection takes time. It takes patience. It takes saying no to a lot of almosts and maybes, so that when the right one shows up, she's ready to recognize it. And that readiness doesn't come from desperation, it comes from discernment. A woman who's been single for a long time isn't weaker for it. She's sharper. She can spot empty promises faster, she can recognize inconsistency quicker, and she can walk away from red flags without hesitation. Why? Because she's had the space to learn herself. She knows what she wants, what she won't tolerate, and what it truly means to have someone by her side who's not just present, but intentional. It's easy to settle for company. It's harder to wait for partnership. But the difference is life-changing. Company can keep you entertained, but partnership helps you build a life. Company might fill your weekends, but partnership supports your purpose. Company might give you moments of attention, but partnership gives you a steady foundation. And once she's experienced the difference, she refuses to confuse the two. So yes, she may be single longer. She may turn down opportunities that others think she should take. She may walk away from someone who looks good on paper, but doesn't feel right in her spirit. And that's because she's not interested in a relationship that just looks good. She's waiting for one that actually is good. One that's rooted in respect, built on trust, and strengthened by love that shows up every single day. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't want to just say she has someone. She wants to be able to say she has the right one.